Okay, so thank you for coming. It's the first thing and being patient with us. Just a very slight technical hitch there. As Deborah said, I am Lisa Devlin. I'm a photographer in the UK. I'm known for being more of the alternative market, maybe than the traditional market. Apart from being a wedding photographer and being quite busy with that, I do a couple of other things. I run a workshop called the Photography Farm, where I train like photographers. I call it Photography Farm because we host it on a farm that used to be a recording studio, so it's used to looking after rock stars, and we all fit in very nicely there. The other thing I do is sell Photoshop actions, so the tones and all the colours that you see on my work, those are Photoshop actions. I hope you all know what Photoshop actions are. Yes, thank you. Who here is a wedding photographer or aspires to be a wedding photographer? Just one guy? Great. Okay. Brilliant. Good. Thank goodness for that. So when Deborah first asked me to come over for this, I was like, really? New York? Oh my God, the shops. And then I was like, what am I going to talk to you guys about? Because I know the UK market really well, and it's so different there than what it is here. We have guys come over to do workshops in the UK, and they say things like, you get 2 hours on the wedding day to do a couple's portraits. A friend of mine went on a workshop for someone called The Images Found and said they had between 2 to 5 hours. I seriously, in the UK, we get sort of between 10 and 20 minutes on a wedding day to do portraits with the couple. I have no idea what I would do with a couple for 2 hours. I think maybe take them off for tea and crumpets. I don't know. So I was like, wow, what am I going to talk to you guys about? And then I spoke to some American photographers, and one thing they said was that the market here is really saturated. So there are a lot of your kind of rock star photographers who do this a lot, do a lot of workshops, and then you have a lot of newbies, people who are getting into the industry, and I think it's the same in the UK. I don't know if it's a product of the double dip recession that we have, possibly how affordable digital photography has become. Now you can buy a camera, a kit lens, get your mate to do a nice website, you're in business. I don't know what it is, but whatever all of these factors are, it is very saturated in the UK, so I thought, okay, it is here as well. What I'll talk to you about is how to find your niche and how to stand out from the crowd in that situation. Okay. So a little bit about me. I went to WPPI. Anyone been there? Apart from my friends. Incredible, just an amazing trade show. I went in earlier this year to Las Vegas. And I was listening to someone called Jose Villa do a talk, who's very inspirational, a really warm and friendly guy, amazing photographer, probably at the top of his game as a wedding photographer in the world. And he stood there talking about his lovely childhood in Mexico and this beautiful farm that he grew up on, and the light and the color temperature and the colors of the walls and how this inspired his work. And I thought, gosh, right, this is where I grew up. I grew up in Northern Ireland. I don't know if you know, but like basically my whole life in Northern Ireland was in the Troubles when we had a very bad situation there. This is the kind of thing I saw every day of my life on my way to school. Bomb scares, army, police, lots of guns, lots of violence, sectarianism, people hating people because of their religion. A lot of graffiti, a lot of places were bombed. It wasn't the prettiest place on earth. So I guess for me that maybe that situation combined with my parents' messy divorce meant that I was looking for escapism, and for me that came through music and photography, the two things that I was most passionate about when I was growing up. And I was very lucky when I qualified. I managed to create a career for myself as a music photographer. I did this for 10 years. This is the kind of work that I did. This is a picture of Eric Clapton for his tour brochure. I was actually on stage with him. This is a 50mm lens, so I'm like this close to the guy. Yeah, thank you. We actually lit it, and it's the final dress rehearsal is the kind of thing that you would photograph, and then they would use those photographs for their brochure for the when you went on the tour. Really nice guy, makes a mean cup of tea. The next shot is a picture of a band called Morcheeba, the lead singers. That's the last time I was in New York, and this is a quick shot that I did of her. So this kind of thing. I didn't take this picture. This is the cover of a Van Morrison album. That is me in the picture. That's my claim to fame. You see me? No? That's me there. That fuzzy person there. That's me. Oh my God, I'm on the cover of like a Van Morrison album. I know it's me. I like to think Van knew it was me, and that's why he picked it. But yeah, I'm running in the background there trying to change film. But that was the kind of work that I did. And as I said, I did that for 10 years and had a great time. I travelled all over the world and I really enjoyed it. But after sort of 10 years of doing it, I was feeling a little bit jaded. And I was looking around for something else to do. Didn't even know if it would be photography. And then my agent at the time got married. She was like, will you do the wedding photographs? And I was like, no. Don't you know who I am? I'm like, music photographer. I've been all over the world. And she said, well, okay, help me choose a photographer. So she sent me some brochures and pamphlets with photographers that were local to where she was getting married. Oh, they were so bad. I was like, I can't let any of these guys take your wedding photographs. I will do it, but I will shoot it as if it was a magazine job. So the kind of thing that I was shooting anyway. I will do more like the story. I will do some background stuff, some details. I will do your family portraits and lineups as well. So she said, great, that's exactly what I wanted. And I did it, and I absolutely loved it. I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. Having worked with so many kind of pop stars who were a princess every day of their life, to then working with a girl who was an ordinary girl, and that process of putting on the dress and the makeup and the shoes and everything, the flowers, she became a princess that day. And I found that process just so magical to record and to photograph and be involved in. And that was it for me. I was totally in love with the profession, and I changed completely from shooting music to shooting weddings. So that was in 2000. I had a fairly busy, fairly successful career from that point on. I hit the market, like at the time it was very traditional high street photographers with their medium format cameras, taking maybe just a few shots in the church and then signing the book and then a couple of lineups afterwards and a nice picture of the girl with her dress all spread out and, I don't know, putting it in an album where it was like then in the nice shape of a bell or something, lots of white vignettes. So I came along saying, well, I'm going to do this documentary style, I'm going to photograph it like a magazine story, I'm going to give you hundreds of prints. And I pretty much walked into a career in wedding photography from that point onwards. I booked 25 sets of clients in my first year. And it kept going and kept going. I really enjoyed it. But I got to the point kind of 10 years down the line where having a good long hard look at where I was at in the market, yes, it had got a lot busier. I was finding it harder to stand out from the crowd, and it was reflected in the kind of bookings that I had. I'm just not really excited about traditional weddings. You know, if your chair covers match your cravats, match your napkins on the table and your bridesmaids' dresses, you know, that's great and that's lovely for people, and that is the majority of weddings in the UK. I don't know about here. Sound familiar? Yeah, okay, good. But that's not the kind of thing that excites me. I like creative things. I like lots of little details to photograph. I'm probably quite OCD about things like that. And I wanted to keep working with people that I was genuinely cared about. It is quite a hard slog, wedding photography, a lot of the time. It's quite thankless. You have long days. A lot of people say to me, oh, your life's so great. You only work on a Saturday. What do you do the rest of the week? I pretty much work 6 days a week, most weeks. And, you know, there's a lot to do. So I was like, okay, how do I get back, hit the market again, and get back to getting those clients that I really care about and I really connect with? So the first thing that I did was I looked back to why I was so passionate about photography in the first place. What was it, apart from the escapism, that I really liked? For me, I had this passion for old photographs. I was like, really, that's the thing. If I ever go to like I don't know what you call it here, but we have car boot sales in the UK. Help me, what are they called? Like a thrift, yeah, a yard sale. Is that it? Like a yard sale. There we go. I'm so like a local now. And you would see like a box of somebody's old photographs, you know, from when like in the 70s when we first had colour photography as was open to everyone. And what they did was that it was like, wow, after all this black and white photography that people really had access to most of their lives, suddenly it was like, we've got colour, so let's have super saturated colour. Like my parents' wedding photographs, my mum's bridesmaids, their dresses were like fuchsia, bright, bright pink, and the photographs reflect that. But now over time, what had happened was those colours had become muted. I just loved that. I love the creamy, muted, subtle tones of old photographs. So that was certainly one of the things that I first thought, but how can I possibly incorporate that into my current digital wedding photography business. And I look back to most of the time that I worked in music, and most of that time I was also messing around with the colours. I would never just do a straight black and white print. I would always tone it, warm or cool or selenium or silver print. I did a lot of cross-processing. So most of my music work was shot on transparency, but if you put that through the chemicals that would be used to process film, you would get these, again, really saturated colours, and it was quite experimental. So I realised I'd done that all my life, and I thought, wow, well, now I'm using Photoshop. Let's really go to town on the colours. What can I do? And I thought there must be a way that I can make photographs look like those old saturated color photographs that had then over time faded. How do I do that in Photoshop? So I experimented and experimented and experimented until I started to get a look that I really liked. At the same time, in fashion, in weddings, it had changed to being like, I noticed my clients were coming at me saying, I'm having a vintage dress. Like 10 years ago, people would never say I'm having a second-hand wedding dress and brag about it. So it was, I guess, serendipity that these things happened around about the same time. And I thought, wow, I've invented a whole new genre. Vintage wedding photography. Wow, I'm amazing. I Googled it, nobody seemed to be doing it, so I was like, okay, I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to keep going, messing with these tones, seeing what happens. At the same time, people were coming to me with their vintage dresses, and I was like, this will look great. And then one of my clients said, have you seen that blog called Rock and Roll Bride? I was like, no, I've never heard of it. What's a blog? And when I eventually looked it up, I realised, like, damn, there was all these other people in the world, especially in America and Australia, who were also doing vintage wedding photography. So I hadn't invented it, but of course I thought, well, you know, it's only one of those things that if someone else on the other side of the world is doing it, then it's probably quite a good thing to be doing right now. And I loved those images that I saw on her blog. So I was like, right, okay, how do I go forward with this? I also thought what I need to do is start to attract those clients that are all into the things that I'm into. I like quirky, I like alternative, I like music. How do I get those people? Having come from shooting bands, it was like I wanted to kind of carry that across as well. So I started to think, who would be my ideal client? And it was probably going to be someone who like had either was a part-time musician or had been in a band or was really into their music. They weren't probably going to be getting married in a church. They're not going to have the matchy traditional day. And I started to think, I really need to reinvent myself. Okay. So, finding your style. I believe that really what you need to do is put those quirky and unique things about you into your style. Work out what it is that you really genuinely are passionate about, and those are the things that somehow you can incorporate into your business. It worked for me. That's exactly what I did. And I think in the current oversaturated market, that what you need to do is start finding your own particular niche. Okay. Now, does anyone know who Jonas Peterson is? Good, good. An amazing Australian photographer. Okay, she's with me now. And he said, when he was asked in this interview on the Rock and Roll Bride blog, how do you define your style? He was like, well, I believe you will never find your style. Style will find you. I like to think as a photographer for over 20 years now, I am still trying to find my style. And I think it's that kind of quest that keeps me excited about the industry and keeps me creative. And I hope in another 10 or 20 years, I'm still trying to find my style. But some of the things that I think maybe other people perceive as your style are some of the decisions that you make when you take those images. So there will be consistency. Some of the things that I'm very consistent about is certain f-stops. Is anyone else the same? You get obsessed with shooting at certain f-stops. I do shoot with quite a wide depth of field a lot of the time. I don't tend to use a lot of flash. I like natural light. I prefer natural light. I always have done. The lenses that I use, I go through favourite lenses and I use again and again and again, and sometimes they're the only lens I'll take to a shoot. All of those things that you make a decision on before you take the picture. Then you're taking the picture and how you process it. So having consistency in that processing as well all helps to define how you're perceived as your style. So again, the things that you are genuinely passionate about. I worked with one photographer on my photography farm who was really, really, really into nature and cycling. And I was like, somewhere out there are people getting married that are really into nature and cycling, and you're the photographer for them. So what you're passionate about is not the same things that I'm passionate about. But I want to see those passions in someone's work. So I believe that you will find your style by first of all attracting the right clients. So like I said, I'd worked out who exactly would be my ideal client, then I worked out exactly where they were looking for their suppliers. For me, they were probably looking in more alternative places. But I guess that how they choose to have their story recorded was very important. I found that with weddings becoming more alternative, a lot of people were then saying, we don't even need a photographer. Our friends are going to shoot it on their cameras and then give us the disc, or everyone's going to shoot it on their iPhone. We don't need a photographer. So what I thought as well is I'm going to have to work doubly hard because these people don't even want a photographer. Okay. So I wanted to make my voice as strong as it possibly could be in attracting that alternative client. So how I presented myself, everything that I did and everything that I put out there had to be presented in a way that was unique to me and showed my passions. I put out personal projects, so when that period of time when I was kind of in transition between having more traditional work and then getting the kind of clients that I really wanted. Of course, in weddings, everything works quite far in advance. So I put up personal projects that were more in line with what I really wanted to do. So they were more the kind of clients that I wanted to attract. And that was one of the ways that I did it. So I was saying, hey, look at the kind of stuff I really want to shoot rather than some of this other stuff that maybe I don't want you to look at. Okay. I'm going to show you some images that I've shot. I don't know if anyone's actually looked at my website and knows my work, but I thought I'd take you through some of the things that are what I am genuinely passionate about in wedding photographs. I love these moments of stillness in a crazy, crazy morning when she's getting ready and there's hair and makeup people and there's crazy ants running around and music blaring, or somebody can't find this thing that they really need, and this girl's about to get married. And I love finding these little moments of serenity and that when it hits her what she's about to do. I don't know anyone who's been married, but it kind of hits you in a wave every now and then. And this is the girl. This was like in England, we have these buildings like 15th century that they put hotels into them, and they have like tiny little windows that are about here, and the rooms are pitch black dark. So I'd moved her to the window just to get a nice clean shot of her in this crazy, chaotic room. And I just spoke to her a little bit about what we were going to be doing that day and the enormity of what she was about to do, and got this beautiful moment with her.
Excuse me, I don't want to break your flow, but since you mentioned the f-stops and other things,
Yep.
if you feel comfortable telling us to the extent that you remember.
I am not the world's most technical photographer, but I would say that probably 90% of these images that I'm going to show you were probably shot at between f2 and f4. I'll talk about it a little bit more when I go into groups. Obviously, don't get too stuck on one f-stop that it's all you ever shoot at, and then you've got 100 people in front of you and you're on f2. But yeah, I mean, you can see by the depth of field in the back of the images. This is her mother, who was just beautiful. She looked like Sophia Loren. She'd just given her a really significant piece of family jewellery. So again, although we've done those, like the timeline pictures, I call them, that the client asks you for. So I think she'd asked for a picture of her and her mum was like, make sure you get a picture of me giving her this gift. So I had done that picture, and it was like, but then at this moment in between where it's the emotion of like, oh my God, I'm getting married, and oh my God, you just give me grandma's pearls, or whatever it was. Okay. A lot of the girls I work with seem to run late and sometimes get a bit stressed. You know, this maybe isn't the perfect shot. If I'd set it up, then the hairdresser certainly wouldn't still be in the background, but it's a genuine moment of emotion. And the fact that I probably shot at f2 means that he's quite out of focus. I think the hands express almost as much emotion as the face. I often focus on the hands, especially this part in the day. You know, sometimes it takes these girls a while to get into the dress. You get a bit bored taking the same picture. And I think they show the nerves and the excitement and the emotion. I take a lot of pictures of hands. Again, I think, when we see these images, that the girl remembers, oh my God, I was so nervous by that point. I can remember standing there holding my hands, when necessarily the picture that she'd given me as a timeline picture wouldn't express that. Again, picking your fingernails when you're nervous. And the boys. Let's not forget the boys. I always send a second shooter to cover the men in the morning, and I send my second shooters with the same obsessions as me. This other shot, the coming down the stairs shot, this shot I obsess over every time I shoot a wedding. I want to nail this shot. This girl, she's upstairs, she's getting ready upstairs, and her bridesmaids are helping her, and her family are helping her, and then sooner or later everybody goes downstairs, and there's a moment where she comes downstairs on her own, and it's always like a ta-da! And even all these people who've helped her get dressed are always like, oh wow! Like they hadn't seen her before. But I know what it's like to stand at the top of those stairs and think, wow, this is it. I'm totally ready in all this stuff. I have the perfume on. I have the underwear on. I have the shoes, the thing, all those things I went shopping for. And then you go downstairs to this moment, or seeing her dad, or all of those things that happen. And I just want to capture that in a picture. So every week I'm there trying to nail this shot. So sometimes I play around. I think it might be the better shot from above. I love how her dress fills the entire space. I don't even know how she got down the stairs. And there's messing with the angles. This, I'm not about the perfect shot. If this was perfect, her dress wouldn't be so wrinkled at the back. This was her genuinely walking down the stairs in her stately home wedding. I love it. This, she's just got to the bottom of the stairs, and it's like they're already late, but she's like, right, what are all the things that I need to do? And that moment, that, oh my God, I'm getting married moment. Okay, so details. I obsess on details. I love a wedding where people have put all their stuff in there, and it's, I don't know, his Star Wars cookie jar collection, or these jam jars. I don't know if you have, do you call them mason jars? Is that what a mason jar is? So jam jars that, the granny and the mom have been collecting for the whole 18 months that this couple have been engaged. And it's like every weekend they go and get jam jars. I love recording all of these little things that might, again, in time be forgotten. I think the devil is in the detail. It adds layers to their story, and everything that they've come to for this one particular day, that journey. I think there's the story in there of her mum getting that jam jar, whatever jam it was. Okay. So, again, I'm a girl. I love the dress. I'll take that dress. I'll hang it. It's always hanging on the back of a wardrobe or on a door, and I'm like, let's take that dress for a journey. So this was actually her parents' bedroom, and I had to clear some old suitcases and an old TV. But I knew that it would be framed so beautifully, and the material was so diaphanous that with the light coming through, that would look amazing. It maybe only took me 5 minutes. I'm a pretty quick worker, and I will employ anyone who's handy. So I think a brother helped me move the TV. But I love that story of the dress, all that shopping and those things that you've done, and then it's just hanging there waiting to be put on, and that moment of anticipation. Sometimes there's nowhere in the house that's a good place for the dress. This is a pretty risky shot. My second shooter is standing behind it. She's tall and skinny. And I would never take a risk, like if it was a windy day or it was going to rub up against a wall or a tree. But sometimes this can be, the best option. And this dress is vintage, and I thought it's kind of quite ghost-like because it's blowing in the wind a little bit. It doesn't have to be in a window or on a door, be anywhere. It tells the story of this really chic hotel room that this girl was getting ready in. This dress is made from pineapple. You heard of that before? I never heard of that. She's from the Philippines, and it's they use pineapple fiber, yeah? Oh, it was amazing. It was such a beautiful dress, so gorgeous, so much detail in it, so heavy. I don't know how she stood up in it all day. Okay, shoes. I love shoes. I love to take their shoes. I'll take them. I want to make a really big statement shot. I bought the first wedding dress that I tried on when I got married. But I probably tried on about 250 pairs of shoes. And I think that's a big shot for a girl, the shoes.
Oh.
It's cute, isn't it?
Was that place post-processing, the I do?
No, she had those stuck
really?
on her shoes,
Really?
yeah. I don't spend that much time in post-production. Bless you for thinking I do. So wedding shoes, they're cool, yeah? Oh, they're wicked. I think my brides wear cool shoes. So that's a combination of my really good marketing and getting girls that I really connect with. I like shoes, they like shoes. And maybe not just her shoes, maybe everyone's shoes. Okay, so the flowers, again, another iconic shot that you've got to document on a wedding day, but it doesn't have to be a boring shot of her just stood there holding the flowers. I saw, I think it was Jasmine Starr, who said something about how if you just put those flowers on a chair in the hotel room as the photographer, shame on you. So I always try and make this a really creative shot as well. So it might not be the shot that's done. I'll probably do a shot in the room where she's getting ready when the flowers are at their best, but I'll still use that as a detail shot later in the day as well. And I love while she's doing her main kind of posing. I haven't cropped this in post-production or anything. I very rarely do any cropping. This is just a little detail that I've spied while we're doing her portraits and how the colours really pop against that lovely muted background. And again, I've just taken these. When I was outside with her dress, I thought, oh, the flowers look really nice. It really expresses their venue, where it's like really rural. And sometimes everyone's flowers. Great dresses. And again, depth of field. So, you know, I'm opening up probably F2 to really focus on those flowers. This is not a shot about that dress, it's about the flowers. Okay. This is the last wedding I shot a couple of days before I came away. Beautiful Spanish style dress, really gorgeous. Love all that lace. And then there's really poppy colour flowers in the middle. Okay, again, reception details. So as wedding photographers, it's really important to record these in the best way you possibly can. It's all about the story of that particular couple, and most of my couples will choose lots and lots and lots of different things. I very rarely turn up to a reception and think I've seen this all before. Okay. So what I generally do is I'll shoot like a big wide room shot when the room's clear, and then I'll start to work my way in, and that's something I do a lot. I do it with portraits and I do it with details, so I can put it in a setting. Coming from an editorial background, I think that's like proper like kind of practice that we always did, like telling the story by getting the big shots and then coming in for the details. I think if you just shoot tiny little details and close-ups, then it's hard to put it in situ. So this, you can tell that they had lovely long bench tables rather than round tables, because I've shot this that way. But then I've also shot the detail shot, so you can see what that thing is on the table. They have sat there DIYing everything for the last 12 months in the run up to their wedding, making all of these things. What are we doing tonight, darling? We're stamping labels. And I want to record all of that for them. This couple made everything for their wedding. She made the flowers, they made the cake the day before. You know, and I can see that that is important to these guys. So again, the shot on the left is the big table shot, and then we've done the flower details, so I will do both. I use a little 50mm macro lens, and I'm usually, like I said, really pushed for time in a UK wedding, so I'll often use it to do the big shot as well. It works really well, and then I can go really close, so for rings or flowers or anything else that I need. So those are probably some of the examples of the more obvious detail shots that you would see. But again, I think the devil's in the details, so I do take some other shots that I think are expressive of the story. So again, I do the obvious things, which are the timeline, like you must photograph the tables. But then I think there's lots of other story and lots of other details of their day. So these guys had their reception in a pub, a pub. And they just had that little sign there. I had to wait for the landlord to get out of the way to take my shot. But this is one of the shots on my Pinterest that's been repinned the most. I don't know why. This, you know, the wedding cake half eaten and her flowers just left on a table. You know how precious those things are in the morning, and then they just get abandoned. Nobody cares about them. You know, I think this is pretty expressive of these guys' wedding day. This is the ladies' toilet. So I went to a really alternative wedding. They had their portraits done in a graveyard, and she's the girl that had the shoes with the skulls on them. Amazing, amazing wedding. And when I went to the loo, I came out and saw this. So I don't know if the bride read it or someone else read it. I didn't write it, but this certainly did express, you know, their wedding day. And I love that detail. Groups, I don't find them boring. I like doing them. Again, I like a challenge, so I like to try and do the groups in a way that's interesting and expressive of their day. These guys, it's like an iconic London town hall with steps outside. So we did a big group shot of everyone gathered on the steps. These buildings look amazing, but they're municipal buildings, so there are people going in the background to like get their housing benefit and things. So you've always got to try and make it look a bit more formal. And then we just did the confetti, and I do this a lot where I'll keep the couple focused on me, because the more natural thing that couples will do is turn around to face their friends and family. But this is a better shot. Okay. I do this a lot, where friends are taking pictures, so they'll kind of stand there for their family lineups. And then friends start putting their own shots together. And I think these are great, so let's have a professional photograph of that as well. And that's one of those, all squished on a bench. A cool bunch. I tend to take the straight shot, and then I'll do something a little bit more fun. So these guys, I don't know, I got them to do Zoolander or something, I don't know, do their best model pose. I like how the little ones are like, do what? These guys. So you can see the kind of clients that I started to get. Definitely a bit more alternative. This is a shot that I did, it started to rain. And we hadn't done their kind of bridal party shots. This is the bride, the groom, their bridesmaids, and the best man. And by the time we had got the rain had stopped, we'd moved on to their venue where they were having the drinks. This street is in the middle of London. It's really busy. Behind them, there was like an old white van. There were some bins on the right-hand side. So I was like, what am I going to do? They had, in the hallway of where you went into their reception venue, they had this great big skull that was made out of polystyrene that I think they bought off eBay from like a carnival or something. So I got the ushers to bring that out for me. And I had some little smoke bombs with me. You just set fire to, they go for like 30 seconds. So I got some people to help me out with those just to cover up where the bins are. So again, working very quickly and making the decisions really quickly. They had hired Victorian parlour furniture for where everyone was sitting, having the drinks. So I brought some of that outside. So Lotus Street, it now becomes something interesting because we have a lamp and a chair and a skull and smoke and a funny sign in the background. And there's a lot of people watching, so trying to get these people to focus on what we're doing and make this really cool group shot. Very expressive of these guys' wedding. I do this kind of thing a lot, a nice lineup. And that's tilt shift. I haven't done that in post-production, so that's why. So the bottom looks really fuzzy and the top looks really fuzzy, so the focus is really on their faces. She had a lot of bridesmaids. He had 2 best men. And this, just as the light is about to go. Probably quite a sophisticated wedding, but they were still really good fun. Okay, this is another really recent wedding of mine, shot on a beach. It's not often in the UK that we have these big open expanses, you know. I don't shoot in the desert all the time, and this beach, yeah, really beautiful. I love the lines, and I love the fact that I can create the feeling that there's no one else around. There was a lot of people walking their dogs, kept getting in the background. And this, the big group shot of everyone. It doesn't have to be the most boring picture you take all day. Again, it can be expressive of their story. So they've asked me in the timeline to do a picture with us with all of our guests. This can be a challenge if you don't have like a really, like a lot of height, like you can shoot out a window of a building, or you don't have a lot of space, like in central London. You can't see everyone that clearly, but I think it's a really fun shot. And they loved it. And so we kind of, you know, they had this bus going between 2 venues, so we used the bus, so some people are stood on there. And it's a very iconic London image. Okay. So as a wedding photographer, of course, a lot of what I do is shoot couples. A lot of times people say to me that I train or that I meet, like, it's so easy for you because you have these really cool couples. Like, that just happens. I don't do any work to get these really cool couples. And that these really cool couples are really comfortable being photographed. in the UK, people hate, like nearly probably 95% of my clients say to me, I hate having my photograph taken. That's almost the first thing they say when we meet. It's not easy to hear. So I think over time, when I've trained more and more people, I've realized that I have these 4 basic rules that create some really awesome couple shots. Okay. So I'm all about the light. Like I said earlier, I would much prefer to take pictures of people in daylight. So I will first and foremost find the light. And whatever that means that I have to do, like those guys where I move them in the street and I then think, okay, I've got to sort something out in the background because you can see bins. I put them there because the light was the best possible light in that street. I will then do something about the background. And I find an angle that's the most flattering to that couple. Finding their angle starts most of the time when I do an engagement shoot with them. So I encourage every single couple that I work with to do a shoot at some point before the wedding. Does anyone here offer engagement shoots? Do you enjoy doing them? Yeah, I love doing engagement shoots. Some photographers say that they don't. I love doing them because I get to know that couple, and I love doing them because I get to know how they photograph. I love doing them because in the UK it's very seasonal. So where all over the summer I've got loads of weddings to get publicity off the back of. Then in the winter and the spring I don't have so many, so I do my engagement shoots, and I've still got stuff to put on my blog and submit to magazines and to wedding blogs. And I just think they can be fun. As a photographer, they're a good way to show your creative side. I think you try and get to know what couples would like. It's always got to be, I always try and base them on that couple, so whatever they're into. So maybe it's to do with the story of their proposal, or it might be the place where they hang out, the place they first met, their joint passions. I sometimes send a little questionnaire if I really haven't met someone before. The last engagement shoot I did was for a couple who lived in California but were getting married in London. So we did one just before their wedding, and they were both artists. And so we did this shoot where they made masks based on the owl and the pussycat, and they hired a venue, and it was all very expressive of them. I don't tend to impose my ideas, but sometimes I get a request from people saying, can you do a shoot with us in London, and can you provide all the props? I even get them saying, can you provide the dress? No, it's got to come from you. So everything that you see in my images has come from that couple. So by the time it comes to their wedding day, when I have my 10 to 20 minutes with a couple, I've got to be able to jump into the shorthand that I've created with them when we've done the engagement shoot. I've got to know how they photograph. I've got to know what they will do. Like, I wouldn't push someone into doing something very emotional if they were not very comfortable with that. At the same time, some people are, and I want to create these images that are expressive of how that couple feel about each other. What I don't want to create is images that they're standing there thinking, what does she want us to do? Because that photograph's about me. I want them to almost take me out of the equation, but I've got to get the picture. So I've got to be there. I will do techniques where I center people. I will suggest what they talk about. On a wedding day, quite often what I'll do is get the groom to tell her exactly how he felt and how she looked as she walked down the aisle. He hasn't had a chance to do that normally. And he might not do it later on. He might forget in the whole thing. And it sets them into this place where they're comfortable to be emotional with each other. I do lots of different techniques. And like I said, I then want to find the emotion. Okay. And this can be, sometimes people really struggle with this. I think Americans are probably better and more comfortable expressing their emotions. Sometimes, especially boys in the UK, get really cold about it. So sometimes I will get them to focus more on what their hands are doing than their faces. Some of these techniques that I use. But the last thing I want is that they're just thinking about me, and they're thinking, what does she want us to do? Where does she want my hands? Where does she want my ears? Okay. So this was an anniversary shoot with a couple. They were already married, and I got him to talk to her about the last thing that she did that made him feel really proud that he hadn't had a chance to tell her. And it creates this lovely intimate moment. I don't necessarily want people to cry, but she did. And it just meant for the rest of the shoot, they were in a place where they felt comfortable and focused on each other and emotional with each other, and in a space where they were thinking about their wedding and how they felt about each other, rather than everything else that was going on, because it was quite a styled shoot. It's a wedding day. The couple, I'd done the engagement shoot quite close to the wedding day, and these guys were just really comfortable being quite emotional with each other and talking to each other. So a few little prompts on what I think that they should talk about, but really I want to step back and let them do it. Like I said earlier, I start usually quite wide, so I say to them, I can't hear what you're talking about. And it gives them that sense to be comfortable and start focusing on each other. And then I usually step closer. I shoot a lot with a 50mm lens. I like it. I like the way it looks. I don't carry a lot of zoom lens. I'm really minimal on my kit. But I think you can step in, as long as you don't start right up in their faces, I think you can move in and they still feel intimate. So the same thing, sometimes you've really got to get people to focus on what's inside and taking away one of the senses. So I quite often get them to close their eyes. Just helps them focus on those inner feelings more than everything else that's happening around them, like the craziness of a wedding day. You know, there might be, they can see their guests in the background, or they're worried about the catering, or things are overrunning, or all of the craziness that happens on a wedding day. I love the evening light. So normally what will happen on a wedding day is I will do their portraits on the time that they have assigned me during their timeline. It's usually pretty soon after they've got married. So in the UK, that's maybe 2 or 3 in the afternoon. It's never when the best light is. But I will do their main portraits then. And if the light later on, I call it the magic light, if we're getting this magic light and they're eating their first course, I'm like, let's go outside, 5 minutes. I find the light. This is actually in the background is their car park. So the lights are somebody's car reversing. But we're focusing on the couple because I put them in this amazing, beautiful, soft backlight. Talk about centering someone. Everyone always says, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you at a wedding? This was a wedding I did in central London in a place called King's Cross, which is known as quite a rough area. And when we went from the venue where they had their ceremony to where they had the reception, there was a forensic tent right outside. And they were literally scraping a dead body off the cobbled street, like there. While their drinks reception is here. Some poor soul had dived out of a hotel window in the early hours of the morning. So a lot of brides would freak right out. The noises were really horrible. These guys were really chilled out, really happy. They're just like, it is in central London. This is a very sad day in someone's family, but this is our wedding day, and that's what we're going to concentrate on. So talk about finding the light. The best light was in this street. We're still fairly close to the dead body. But I managed to get these guys to really center, focus on each other, and filter out everything around us. I just love that shot. I love it so much. It was the last wedding I shot a couple of days before I came over here. Again, really beautiful light that we got, that warm autumnal, beautiful soft light. This is something called a first look. Does anyone here do those? If possible, it's lovely. It's a really amazing thing to do. So it's where the couple see each other before the ceremony. And I think it's partly because that moment can be so incredibly emotional. And to walk down an aisle and do that moment in front of 150 people maybe seems weird if you think about it. So to do it in an intimate setting with just the two of you and then the photographer there to record it is something that people are doing more and more, and I certainly encourage some of my clients to have. You know, these girls knew they were going to be super emotional when they first saw each other. So we just did it. It was about 10 minutes before they were due to go and get married in a beautiful outdoor ceremony, and they were super emotional. And they managed to get all of that out before they then went and got hitched and had a party. Okay. I do this shot a lot. She leans on him. But I love it. What I do is get them to close their eyes, and I think, you know, listen to the sounds around you. But what she can hear is his heartbeat. So she's so focused on him. You get this really powerful shot. Again, taking them out in the evening light. This girl actually had a change of outfit for the evening light. and these guys in a crazy busy street in London, but just so in love. We called her the Barefoot Bride. She didn't wear shoes all day long. In London. Oh no, her feet were minging. Okay. Focusing on each other. It's as if I'm not there. So this is the couple that I started it with. So where I maybe focused them a bit too much, and she found it quite emotional. So I think it's very important that you keep your shoot fun. This was their idea. He wears this around the house all the time. This is not something I suggested or got for him. This is how he lounges. I love it. This again, oh my God, my friend Kat, who's here, when we went to WPPI in Las Vegas, we arranged some shoots while I was there. And so these are some people that she knows. And they very kindly volunteered to have a couple shoot with me because I wanted to shoot in the desert. And we drove around till I found the perfect tree. I was like, it's got to be a particular type of tree. And when we got there in the middle of the desert, there was no one around for miles except one car that contained two crazy hillbillies who were really drunk at 2 p.m. and decided that they were going to hang out with us. We walked really far trying to get rid of them. They just kept hanging out with us. And they were like, very friendly. I tried my best. People in England are crazy, eccentric. People in America might be crazy, but with shotguns. So I was just trying to be super polite to this guy. Oh, man. But we managed to get Daniel and Jose in this beautiful place where they were so centered on each other, and we did these gorgeous shots with our two crazy friends here talking at us the whole time. The power of centering people. Okay. This again. It's beautiful. I do this exercise with couples quite a lot at weddings, where I just get them again to focus on the hands and what the hands are doing. And you can create so much emotion by really getting that couple to focus on each other and what they've been doing that day. I think it's like the culmination of that journey into that wedding. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about branding. People think a lot of times that a lot of the photographers I train with that you just get a logo and you're branded. Okay. Branding's a lot more than that to me. And I think part of getting yourself above the crowd is that you have a strong brand that people connect with. I found that when I rebranded that brand was successful because the kind of people that connected with it were the kind of people I really wanted to shoot. So you've got to find the right brand for you. At the same time, like, you're not Gap, you're not Coca-Cola. A lot of people get hung up that they're going to have this brand forever. You can rebrand quite cheaply as a wedding photographer. So I believe in finding something and committing yourself to it. Okay. My particular brand, a lot of you got my business card on your chairs. My particular brand it's maybe not too girly, because I think, well, I am a girl. People know that someone called Lisa is a girl. So I don't have a super girly brand, because I also want to connect to the boys in the relationship. Okay. I do like quirky things, and I like working with quirky people, so I chose a quirky font. Maybe quite obvious, but some of the best brands and logos are just font-based. Okay. What is that font? Oh gosh, it's called 3Dumb. 3Dumb, freedom for 3Dumb. Yeah, I kind of like that as well. Okay. And I keep that brand through all of my presence online and how I present myself everywhere else. Does anyone know of something called Think Splendid? Yeah, it's a US site, and she analyzes a lot of statistics from weddings, and she does a lot of surveys with couples. And one of the things when I was looking at my rebrand that really stood out to me in her data was she said that we've changed from everything's about the bride. She said the way that society has shifted, that a lot of times the boys are not the main breadwinner, or the boys, like, I don't know about you guys, but in England, my husband loves to cook. He thinks he's Jamie Oliver. He gets everything out and puts it in the little bowls, and it's like all like on the TV, like how they cook, And so you've got to take the bride out of all of your literature and everywhere that you talk to people who are potential clients. So don't say, I don't know, the bride, like, if you were my bride, this is what would happen. It's like, it's got to appeal to both of them. So I'm very non-specific. I don't have anything anywhere that just appeals purely to the bride. And a lot of times it is the guy who books me. I get a lot of guys who are graphic designers, or they are somehow in a creative job. And I think that that is the whole part of the big circle of me getting the right clients. Okay. I think if you're really stuck on trying to find a brand that suits you, is a good starting point is to start with, say, 2 or 3 words that you think sum you up. And this doesn't mean your work, I mean your personality. So we talked earlier about your passions and finding those things that you're genuinely passionate about and putting them into your wedding photography. And then you grow this from a logo to an experience. Okay. So I have my brand, I think. I think my social media is branded. I think I'm quirky in my social media and I'm very true to the things that I like. I think when they meet me, they always say, wow, you're just like we thought you'd be. And a large part of that is I have film on my site. My website is very image driven. It doesn't have a lot of text. And the reason for that is my old website had quite a lot of text where I was trying to appeal to the SEO thing. But everyone would ask me these questions that meant nobody was reading it. So I was like, let's take all the text off there. And I put films on there which are about me and how I work. Now, I don't love myself being filmed, but it works for me. It really gets people to connect with exactly who I am. And if you watch the film, it is very me. Okay. So work out exactly what it is that you want to say in your branding. And make sure that everything you do reflects that. So your avatar on your social media, your Facebook page for your business, not your personal Facebook page. Keep that separate. That's where you're going to see pictures of my cat and my kids and the kind of things that I do away from work. Okay. If you're not strong at this kind of thing, there are a lot of people who are. I firmly believe in if it's not your strength, then get someone who you can pay, who will do it for you. And but we have quite a lot of photography branding experts who are really good at what they do. The other thing you can do is just go to Etsy.com, and there are people on there who will give you a logo that will also could be a blog header. They will give you like a package, and you can work out what exactly it is that you need to create your brand with them. Incredibly affordable people that will do this. You can take something that they already offer and adapt it just for you. And I know a lot of photographers in the UK who've done that really successfully. Or you can give them a brief, or you can just flat buy something off them. Okay, but whatever it is that you're going to do, Etsy.com, ETSY.com. You haven't heard of Etsy? Okay, amazing. It's like a huge online shop, kind of like eBay for creatives. But put in there, search logo for wedding photographer and see what you come up with. Or put something really crazy in there and see what it comes up with. So those crazy cycling, gardening photographer logo. See what it throws at you. But whatever it is that you do, just commit to it. So many people procrastinate on this kind of thing. Like I said, it doesn't have to be forever and ever and ever. But I want to see something that's unique. It totally expresses who you are. Okay. So how you find your voice. So like we said, we talked about how you present your work. Me, I do give my clients the disc. I used to shoot, like I said, for 10 years I shot film, and they would get a lovely little package of prints, and then we would do a Queensberry album with them. And around about the time that I realised that I needed to rebrand, at the same time every conversation I had with a potential client was saying, can we get the disc? Which I guess coincides with when everyone moved to digital. So I was like, if everybody wants a disc, I'm going to have to give the disc. But I give that disc, it's branded, it's in a beautiful little case that reflects my branding. So the actual disc has my logo on it, then the case, and I wrap it, or I get people in the office to wrap it really nicely, and we put it in with a load of stuff and the whole thing. So when they get that package, I imagine that my clients get really excited. They've come back from honeymoon. They may be a little bit deflated after the whole wedding thing is over, and they no longer have to spend night after night DIYing things for the wedding. maybe a little bit flat, but then this package arrives and it's exciting. I want them to get a bottle of champagne and go through their photographs together. So it's how I present myself. So, and then talking about your presence. So I firmly believe that how you present yourself, what you talk about on your business Facebook pages, on your Twitter account, on your Pinterest, on all of these things should reflect those genuine passions that you want to present to people. I don't go on Twitter and moan about that my postal delivery was late or what happened to me at the supermarket. I don't moan on there at all. I try and stay positive. I am a very positive person, and I just don't think it's the time or the place. I've got friends or my mum that I can talk to about that kind of thing. Keep it positive and keep it real, a real reflection of what you genuinely are about. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how you can push your brand. So online, there are things that you can do, like, so you obviously have a lovely website, you set up your business Facebook page, you set up a Twitter account, you set up a Pinterest. Pinterest for photographers, you've got to be there. Brides love Pinterest. Oh my God, they love it. Does anyone not know what Pinterest is? Okay. All blokes. Okay. Pinterest is like an online pinning board. Okay, so you just skip around the internet and you go, oh, I like that picture of shoes or flowers or anything. And you can create these virtual boards and you can call them anything you like. But Pinterest was the fastest growing new social media in the last 2 years. It is global and it has a hell of a lot of followers, but brides and grooms love it because while they're looking for inspiration for their wedding, what they can do is, instead of like the old days when maybe had a folder and they pulled things out of magazines, now they go happy skipping around the internet going pin, pin, pin. They have a whole board just for flowers, a whole board just for table decorations, a whole board of inspiration for the dress. I don't know if I got married now how I would ever hone in the ideas. But if brides are going to be there, then as wedding photographers, we've got to be there and we've got to have a presence. So I invested in my site that would be really pinnable, because not all sites are. I had a lightbox system on my WordPress site before, and people couldn't actually pin it. So I've changed that, and I keep track of what gets pinned. And when I look at my Google Analytics, I see a lot of people are coming to my site from Pinterest. So I make sure as much as possible that my URL is going on everything that gets pinned that's my work. Now you can sit around, and I've heard so many photographers talk about, oh, the copyright issues, Pinterest, my work being used across the internet. Make sure your URL is on there and brides will be finding you. They're like, that's a great picture, or I keep seeing that girl's name. And they click and they find you, okay? Pinterest, be there. Pinterest?
It's like interest with a P at the
Yeah,
beginning.
Pinterest.com. Hi, yep.
Yeah, so are you talking about having a URL on the image itself?
Yes, so, ooh, excitement, Pinterest. Okay, so when you put an image, okay, so if somebody pins from my site, because I've set it up so it's pinnable, my URL will automatically follow it. Okay, but what you can also do with everything that you pin, because it's complicated to explain, but I also pin stuff. So I have like a professional, like a Lisa Devlin photography board, and I will put some of my work up on there. And there's a comment bit, so everyone can see the comment bit. They kind of look like Polaroids when you pin things. You've got white space at the bottom, and I will always put my URL in there, and Pinterest knows that that's a URL and make it clickable. So someone can always they don't have to go into the image and click on the image. They can just go straight to my site from that little bit of text at the bottom. You can write quite a lot of text.
She was asking about watermarks.
Oh, are you asking me about watermarks?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding was that Pinterest wipes the metadata before it puts the images up, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, Pinterest has changed, so it kind of is one of those things that had accelerated before it really was completely set on how the rules should be. But Pinterest has recently changed, so it keeps the information from the original source in as much as possible. So if you pin something from, I don't know, like a website, or if it comes from some other image sources, so it as much as possible is in there. Of course, people can wipe it, and your image can go and get filtered down so much. But I firmly, firmly, firmly believe that you should have all of those other things in place so that your images speak of your style, and they speak about what you're passionate about, they speak about your brand, so that actually if my images are on there and people haven't got an obvious link to them, they can think that's a Lisa Devlin image. But you've got to get over it as a photographer. You've got to be there and do as much as you can to keep your links on any images that are going on there. So I don't put watermarks on my images though. I think it detracts and I think it looks a bit, I don't know, I just don't like how it looks. I want people to look at the image. I don't want to be sitting there going, where shall I put my watermark, which bit of the image. Also, when you look at submitting your work to wedding blogs, and I get 50% of my work from people finding me on a wedding blog. So the kind of wedding blogs in the UK, we get Rock and Roll Bride, it's my friend here. In the US, you get things like Style Me Pretty, Green Wedding Shoes, 100 Layer Cake, all of these blogs. As photographers, fantastic free marketing for you. So the blogs need images, they need details about weddings, they want to tell those wedding stories, they want to feature you. And as photographers, if you're there and they like the wedding you've shot, know how you've shot it, they can click straight through to your site. It's marketing manna, okay? It costs you nothing but your time. And it is how I get 50% of my work. So I work quite hard to be featured on blogs. I know the kind of images like they like, and luckily for me, it's editorial images. So that's how I've always shot. They want to see the story, they want to see the big picture, and then shooting in, coming in close. They want to see really interesting things that they haven't seen elsewhere. They don't want everyone's weddings to look the same. That's going to be a really boring blog if it's just a nice white strapless dress with the same kind of colours. Okay, so they like interesting things. I think it's very important if you're still trying to find your place in the market that you track how people are finding you, and that will tell you a lot. Things like looking at your Google Analytics and looking at what devices they're looking at you on. It might shock you a lot to find out that actually everybody's looking at your website on a 27-inch Mac, but your website doesn't automatically resize to each device and your website looks tiny on there. So that's another thing that I believe in investing in. That's something that I invested in quite heavily with my website when it was done, was that it would resize automatically. A lot of people are looking at my site on an iPhone or an iPad. It's got to work and look as good as it possibly can. That is how you are showcasing and presenting yourself, and that's how you've got to carry across the consistency of your brand. Okay. Now, I work with a lot of people who, they get the logo, they get the Facebook page, they get a Twitter account, they shoot some interesting style shoots, they shoot their friends' interesting weddings, and they sit there saying, I don't understand why I'm not booked up for next year. You've got to be more proactive than that. So you can't just sit there thinking, I'm so fabulous, everyone's going to come to you. Okay, so I believe in things like having a strategy. So I think of myself as my own PR agent. If you can afford to get a PR agent, then do that. And you should be up here talking if you can. But most of us can't. But think of some of their strategies of how they do things. So a PR company won't just put an ad in one place. They will form a campaign. They will think of where else to put it. A PR company will get you some press. So articles where people are writing about you and talking about you. So how can you get press? Well, it's not by calling up a wedding blogger or a wedding magazine or a photography magazine and saying, hey, I'm amazing, I've got this lovely logo and I've shot my friend's wedding and, I've got a business Facebook page and, hey, come and write about me. So how do you get in those places? One thing you can do is to offer articles. So all those photography magazines, does anyone subscribe or read a lot of photography magazines? All those articles in there are written by somebody like you. They are somebody who is passionate about photography but can write. So maybe think about what is unique about you and what maybe you could submit an article about. The first article I ever submitted to a magazine was about how in the UK all the registrars that we work with tell us that it's against the law to photograph when they sign the actual register, which means it's the legal document to say they're married. And one registrar in London told me that this was rubbish, that it's not true. That it's not against the law, it's public. So in this town hall, Paul McCartney had just got married. So I shot a wedding the other day after, and you can see his details on the document. And she was like, but anyone can come in here and spend £2.50 and they can get a copy of this document, whether it's Paul McCartney or your couple today. So it's not illegal. So I was like, well, why am I always told it's illegal? So I looked into it. I phoned the Home Office, which is part of the government in the UK, and it's kind of as high as you can go. And I researched an article and I submitted it to a photography magazine who were like, wow, okay, yeah. They published it. It caused a bit of a debate. And then when I approached them again because I wanted to launch a product, they remembered who I was. So it's not just like calling up and saying, hey, talk about me. Give them a reason to talk about you. Okay. I still do the same thing now. When I've got anything I want to talk about, I will write an article for a website, or I will submit some other things, or I create a little bit of, like, I do preludes, like where I talk about things on my Facebook page that it's like anticipation of something that I'm going to. So I always, this works so well for me, do a sneak peek from a wedding. So I'll shoot the wedding, and I'll come in, and there's that first upload. I shoot like probably about 2,500 images per wedding. And when we first upload those, we pick out just one image that really jumps out as a little sneak peek to put as soon as possible on my Facebook page, because I know that couple are really excited to see at least one official image from their wedding. And in that time, all their friends have put the drunk pictures of where she looks a bit shiny, or they've got red eye, or I don't know what they were doing on the dance floor after I left. But those kind of pictures make it to Facebook like really quickly, even on the wedding day, like a phone, Facebook. So I give them something really pretty really quickly. And what happens is, because that's the only official image that they've got to view on Facebook, is they will tag themselves in it, and they will direct all of those 150 people who've been to their wedding to look at that picture. Hi.
Hi. So in terms of getting something in really quickly or sneak peek, I've heard other wedding photographers or event photographers talk about how they will actually, like if there's a ceremony in the morning and then, you go to the reception, that they will actually print out an image and frame it and have it displayed, like on the table.
But that won't get me any new Facebook likers.
Okay.
What happens every time that someone who knows that couple will say, wow, okay, I like that picture. All they have to do, one click, I like it. They look pretty in it. I like it. And then that shows up in their Facebook feed that that person liked a picture on my professional Facebook page. So someone else might think, what's that? Oh, I'll go and like that page. Or what a lot of the people who've been to the wedding will do is then start to follow me because they want to see the rest. So they want to see when the official blog post comes out a couple of weeks, or the next week or the week after that. So that's how I increase my social media presence. It works so well. Okay. All right. All part of my own little PR campaign. Okay. So finding your niche. Okay. So I think this is a great exercise for everyone to do, is to write a little synopsis of who the ideal couple would be. And it can be anything. You don't have to show it to anyone. So it's nothing that you have to ever be embarrassed about. You can be as specific as you want or as broad as you want, but I think it's very hard to attract the right client when you actually don't know who that person is. So that is one of the exercises I did that I think works really well for me. I then, like I said earlier, I worked out exactly where those people were getting their suppliers. And it was surprising that it wasn't necessarily that they were flicking through magazines. People, I think, have gone back in this crazy oversaturated market. They've gone back to looking for straight old-fashioned referrals. There was a point where I was like on the first page of Google, like for my area, for wedding photographer in my area, and the kind of inquiries I was getting were the people I knew I wasn't connecting with, and it was like lazy inquiries. What they were doing was just clicking on my site because I was on that first page, and I kind of didn't want to book that wedding. I wanted someone who was really excited to be working with me. They were really excited to see what I would come up with, and they would fly me like quite far away from where their wedding, from where I lived to their wedding, because they thought I was worth it. Not that I was just on that first page of Google. So they were maybe reading different magazines or different blogs. It became more of a lifestyle thing. Like I said, we spoke a lot about Pinterest, so they were using Pinterest, and nearly all my clients obsess about Pinterest. They might be at wedding fairs, but alternative kind of wedding fairs. I don't know if you have those here, but we have so many alternative wedding fairs in the UK. But what I wanted to do was be the kind of person that was talked about. So some of it, you've got to be quite subtle about. I found it like really, really, really helpful, like to get referrals from the venue. So I think a lot of times when a couple get engaged these days is they start asking around to everyone that they know who is married to get ideas, or to say, have you got any advice? I found with the digital age, that's what's happening now, is a lot of people saying, oh my God, make sure you get a really good photographer, because we didn't, and we regret it because we don't have great photographs of our day, and obviously it can't be recreated. So definitely their friends and their family was one great referral. So I always, of course, try and make sure I do a really good job. And then I've kept my brand all the way through. So what they're getting in the post is, oh, we got this amazing thing from her in the post. And it was really exciting. It was just a lovely way to end the whole process. Or she did this great thing where she sneak peeked a picture on Facebook the night after the wedding or the next morning. But what I found was that venues was a harder thing. It was more of a closed door. I went to a venue which is in the Cotswolds, which is a really beautiful part of the UK, and the hotel was just amazing. It was a beautiful spa, really beautiful grounds, but quite quirky. And the couple that I shot there were the kind of couple I really, really, really connected with. And I was like, oh, if it was like this every day, this is amazing. So I contacted the venue afterwards to say, have you got a list of recommended suppliers? Could I go on it? I think I did a good job. And they were like, yeah, of course you can. And I never heard anything again. So a few months later, I was thinking, I really do want to go back to that venue. So I thought the wedding that I did was the first time they'd had like an outdoor ceremony at this venue. So I put together a really cheap photo book, just cost me like £80, but $150. And I got one for myself as a sample for the studio. And I sent one to the venue with a nice note, and I packaged everything up really pretty, branded, and said, I thought this might be useful to you because you said when I met you that you hadn't had any outdoor ceremonies. So maybe if people are potentially looking at the space for an outdoor ceremony, it would be helpful to show them this book. So she called me and she was like, wow, that's so kind of you, and that is going to be really helpful. I will put you on our list of recommended suppliers. Ka-ching. And she did, and then she put me on their website and linked through to the wedding that I'd shot there, and I had done a good job. And I do get a lot of referrals from that place now. So trying to think of it in a more subtle way. So remember, being your own PR, that kind of thing, not just put me on your list. For me, that didn't work, but I really wanted to get on that list. I get referrals all the time from people like makeup artists, hairdressers, caterers. I'm so lovely and nice to everybody I meet on a wedding day, even the caterers that don't feed me and I'm starving and I'm in the middle of nowhere. I don't make an issue out of it. If anyone asks me for pictures, so this happens to me a lot, like makeup artists say, oh, can I get something from my portfolio? I'm like, yes, of course you can. Just link back to my website. All part of my own PR campaign. Okay. So things like referrals, wedding fairs, online marketing is so important, but it's not the be-all and end-all. You've got to get out and make real-life connections, and I think you've got to have, part of your campaign has got to be offline. People want to have those referrals. When you Google like wedding photographer in your area, have a look at the number of people that are coming up. So how in that sea do you stand out? And certainly by somebody talking about you and saying how amazing you were, that's one of the ways that you can stand out. Okay. I firmly believe this. If you are your true self, being true to yourself and being your true self, that you will stand out from the crowd, and you present that in everything that you do. Okay. And you will always, if you're doing what you're genuinely passionate about, you will stand out from the crowd anyway, because you will always go over and above what your job entails. And as a wedding photographer, you have to pull out this magical, beautiful, connected shot next to a dead body, or crazies with shotguns, or all the things we have to do. Okay, go on the glasses.
Hi, how do you keep your detail shots looking fresh? So I'm assuming you kind of shoot over the weekend also. Does it ever get a bit samey? Like, how do you make them all look different so you're not exposing emotions or still shooting?
I have to say, I've probably... Oh yeah, sorry. So how do I keep my detail shots looking like being inspired on detail shots week after week? Well, first of all, most of the clients that I'm attracting are so quirky and creative that they put a lot of thought into those details. I very rarely turn up to a wedding and there isn't a lot of it. The one thing that probably was the most repetitious for me last year was vintage crockery, like mismatched crockery. And the couple in the meeting beforehand, they're like, oh, you're going to love our wedding, we've got mismatched crockery. And you're like, or those paper pom-poms, those big paper pom-poms, they're like, we've got paper poms. You're like, oh my God, I haven't seen this since last week. Wow. But to that couple, that is unique to them, and that is because they've been good little couples and looking at their blogs, and those are the things that they're interested in. So I feel it's part of my job to come at that with fresh eyes every week. So I did have one point this summer where the bride was really excited about her paper poms, and I thought, I'm going to photograph the agree, out of those paper poms, and I created a shot where I laid them on the ground, and I got them to keep some of the poms back from being pinned up around the venue, and I covered them in paper poms, and it was kind of, I suppose, my way of thinking, if you're going to give me paper poms, then I'm going to give you the best paper pom photograph you've ever seen your entire life. So I look at things like that as a challenge, and like I said, I want to keep being excited, and a lot of it is because I really care about those couples. So I want to do the best job, and I don't want to turn up with my tired eyes going, oh God, I've seen it all before. Because everyone at that wedding hasn't seen it all before. I get a lot of parents saying to me, wow, have you ever seen anything like this? It's amazing. Because a lot of those people haven't been to a wedding like that. Just because I have, but again, that's because I'm successfully marketing myself to get a certain type of client.
So I've noticed, I don't know, it's just my perception, you don't do any sort of post-processing at all?
I will tidy things up a little bit. Like I said, I shoot about 2,500 images per wedding, and sometimes it's 2 weddings in a weekend, or sometimes I do a lot of other shoots, and with the engagement shoots and everything, we're maybe processing like 5,000 images a week. I do have help. I don't sit and do all that myself. I have a life. But yeah, I don't like a heavily airbrush look. I'm a fairly experienced photographer that will, I think, how I make them look as good as I possibly can on the day. And I feel as well that what I've done is, because I've done the engagement shoot with most of them, and I know how they look best, and I wouldn't shoot them in a way that they wouldn't look good. So I found that I don't really need to. But then what I do is I use action, so I use Photoshop action, so I get those color tones that I spoke about at the beginning, are the things that I'm like, one of the things I'm really passionate about. So I do like the colors to be enhanced, but I run those in action, I run those as a batch process.
Have you been asked, usually Brad would say, could you just smoothen my skin a little bit?
Does a couple ever ask me to airbrush? What I say, we would do it for album images if they really need to. Like, I once worked with a bride who said, before the whole process, you must slim my arms down. And why don't you just wear a different dress, honey?
Well, usually it's just the skin.
Yeah. Like I said, I shoot them in a way that I think flatters them. I like a lot of backlight. I like soft. I like, a nice romantic look. So, and I also encourage them to get a really good makeup artist. I can't sit there and do that on that many images. So, and that is how you look on the day. So I encourage them as much as possible to look as good as they can on the day. But yeah, there are some photographers who do that, and they do that really well. And that's part of what they're passionate about. And that's how they present themselves. It's just not how I present myself. Okay? Hi at the back.
So you shoot all your stuff ambient light. Have you used for artificial light?
Yeah, I do. I've done it a long time. I do if I need to pop a little bit of flash in there, or if it's the depths of winter in the UK and it's dark at 3:30 in the afternoon, I have a whole lighting kit I will pull out, and that would look very different. But given the choice, as much as possible, the kind of lighting that I like is ambient and just the daylight. The daytime I'll take them out in the open shade rather than full sunlight, and I shoot very quickly. And like I said, often in the UK we just don't have a lot of time, so I have to be able to pull it out the bag, and if I start messing around with other things, then it maybe loses the moment. So that's, again, just part of how I like things to look. Okay, right at the back we go.
When you give your images, your PPT, your model images, did you share copyright, or did you ever have any problems before editing your images?
Have I ever had a client that wanted to share the copyright?
Or have you had a problem after you've given up images and retouched them yourself?
Oh, would the client wants to retouch them? Funny, it's never happened to me, but I've known other photographers that they've now started putting in the terms and conditions or the contracts, like you must not re-edit the images. What I give my clients, and I'm very clear about this from the minute that they get that initial quote from me, is you get every good image from your wedding as a colored digital negative. I made that up. But what I think is, although I love all those beautiful muted vintage tones, that they might not always like that. And I think to start with the straightforward image, so it's the same for me as giving them a negative. Now, I think what most of my clients do is take their disc of images and they go to like a supermarket printer and they put it in, and it says, do you want this in color or black and white? And they press the button and they have 5 copies of that, and it'll be nice in black and white. I like black and white photography, I'll have that in black and white. Now if I gave them those beautiful actioned images, they look dreadful machine printed, they've got to be professionally printed, and they look dreadful then if they try and they think, it says I can make it in black and white. So I keep my print prices really low. and I hope that they would have the professional images, but I'm very aware that by giving them the disc, people want to be able to print them themselves. And yes, there are probably people, I don't know what abominations they do, spot color or God knows what, pop art or something like that. I just don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I am all about how I present the images, and I hope that because they maybe look a bit unique, that the kind of people that are coming to me are booking me because they also like that. Okay, hi.
Have you ever considered presenting images online visually, sort of in a website format to tell a story?
So I would present the clients with a website. I use PhotoShelter. Does anyone know PhotoShelter? A really good system. It's an American system. You guys did this bit better than us. And I set that up with my own lab in the UK. So every client gets an online gallery through the PhotoShelter system, and they can view all of the images. They can share that with their friends and family. They can click to share it on Facebook, or they can do whatever they like. And they can certainly order prints through there, or they can create light boxes that sort out what they're going to do with their own images. So I feel, in essence, that is creating them their own website. I think, are you thinking about like the Show It system where...
I was thinking more, I think what you can really beautifully is that you tell the story of the wedding.
Yeah.
It's like you're sort of using those images sort of in a creative format, like whether
Yeah.
it's, I think sort of through a website or through a more creative medium, sort of to take those images and sort of to lead someone through the process of how they do this.
So I think I do kind of lead them through the process of what you're saying is I would do a blog post, so they'll have their little Facebook preview, and then at some point in the following week normally, we will have finished the whole edit. I will have picked an action. I have, in my sets of actions, I have, like 120 actions that I've developed and that work really well for me and work really well on my images, and other photographers seem to like them and they buy them and they use them. But what I encourage people to do is mix them. We do this thing on my site called Friday Formulas, which is I have a whole different Facebook page for the actions because that's appealing to photographers, not to brides, and encouraging people to mix them and play with them so that they're always looking fresh and different. And so what I'll do at some point, a few days after that wedding, is do probably about 100 images in a blog post on my site. And they're very editorial, so there's no group shots. It's the story of what I feel would be like a little magazine story on that day. And generally, when I submit that wedding to a blog or a magazine, they just use those exact pictures. They're not going to be that couple's favourite 100 images, of course, because their grandma isn't in them or whatever they want. But again, they're how I present myself and keep that consistent. So I think that is a little bit me presenting the story of what I view the story of their day, but then they will, and again, then when they choose their album images, I very much encourage them to choose some detail shots and some bigger overview shots, like a big shot of the venue or all of those things, and help them put that story in that book. Okay, hi.
Well, when you present to magazine this group of pictures, do you have a model release from couples that they're okay with that?
No, because that's already been covered in my initial contract with them. So it's already been covered. So I again, though, I would never submit to a magazine or a blog without the couple's consent. They can opt out in the contract stage of it. And again, but when it comes to, I say, this blog or this magazine is interested, or I've submitted it, is that okay with you? Because, of course, when things go online and they go everywhere, we're living in the Facebook age, though, and people are used to it. Yeah, it's never really, most of them love it because they found me that way, so they love it. It's the opposite. They like, I've had people who are like, which blog do you think we can get on? Okay, hi.
What's your website?
It's on the business card that I left on your chair. Hi. Yeah, I always have a second photographer, so she will go to the groom in the morning, and then we work in sort of tandem. I have a small team, and they're all girls, and we work. We all know each other really well, and they know what I like, and I'm very lucky to have a really great team. Yeah, I mean, the wedding day is crazy. They might be anything from a light stand to they might be a tailor sewing a girl into her dress. If it can be all sorts. So just they've got to be prepared for everything.
You showed us a lot of great shots. I'm wondering, since you said you often only have 15-20 minutes, are you not shooting the reception?
My second shooter is a lot of the time.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of the time, that's, I'd never go on my own. a lot of the time we just have to make the best use of our time. So a lot of times in the UK, the ceremony will finish and we have 90 minutes before they're going to sit down for dinner. That is standard. And that's when you've got to do their portraits, all the group shots, the still lives, the guests, the informal guest shots, so reportage. And the bulk of it is done in that 90 minutes. So I've got to be prepared, I've got to know the venue, I've got to have scouted out where I'm going to do groups, where I'm going to do their portraits, and not mess around. So, but yeah, often I will go in and shoot the details while my second shooter will be out doing the informal group shots or informal guest shots. Hi. Oh yeah, I think it's great. It's not my favourite thing to do. I tried it a few times. Photo booths at weddings. Do you guys have those here? Yeah. In the UK, there are so many companies doing the photo booth thing really well. Like we just used one in a shoot at the photography farm, and it was an old Airstream Caravan, and they put a photo booth inside it, and that was amazing. It looked fantastic, and we found like you can get them in old London taxis, and all these people, these entrepreneurs, jumping on this trend for photo booths. I don't know if anyone's had to do a photo booth at a wedding, but it's like where all the drunk guests put silly moustaches on and want to be in a picture. And I love the couple shots and I love the detail shots, and I'm kind of over the whole thing by then. I'm like, I don't think you're that funny. Just saying. And they nick all your stuff, and it's like, so I don't. I used to, and now I would just recommend someone else. Like, sometimes people offer it as an extra, or they just include it, and maybe that's the thing that keeps you over and above your competition. If you enjoy it, and some photographers do, I know really well, they enjoy that bit and they want to offer it, then go for it. It certainly is, couples like it, they really like it. Yeah. On that Freddie Mercury note, we'll call it a day. Thank you so much. Thank you. Woo!
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.